When a group of archaeologists is digging a section of the Jordanian Amman citadel, they come across an incredible marble hand. Even though the artifact itself is a remarkable find, some experts think that the enormous stone body part could only be the beginning of a significant discovery. Archaeologists think this enormous hand may have been part of the tallest marble statue ever built. Of course, the ancient world has something of a reputation for astonishing structures. Indeed, in the era of the Byzantine Empire, the author Philo of Byzantium wrote a work that he called the Septum, Monday Miraculous, or on the seven wonders of the world. And in the treatise Philo described seven tomato are things to see. These days, we might call them must-sees. In the writer's opinion, they were the most remarkable feats of engineering and art in the ancient world, and therefore places that every traveler should visit. Today, we don't actually know if all of these wonders ever really existed, and even if they did, their descriptions may well be subject to exaggeration. 6 of these natural and architectural triumphs didn't make it to modern times, you see, making it impossible to know for sure if the sites were accurately portrayed in Philo's work. Some of the historic attractions succumbed to natural disasters, such as earthquakes, while others fell victim to human malice nowadays. Then only one survives. But arguably the most famous of the 7 wonders is the one that's still around today. Completed in around 2561 BCE, Egypt's Great Pyramid in Giza remained for nearly 4,000 years, the highest structure ever built by humans. And although many of the tomb's treasures were stolen a long time ago, the pyramid itself remains almost intact. At the other end of the 7 wonders scale, however, are the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. You see, while the existence of the Great Pyramid can't be denied, there is no conclusive evidence that the gardens ever really once flourished. In addition, despite the wonder's widespread use in Roman and Greek literature, there are no accounts from witnesses. Even if the gardens were real, the Metzen Point might have been destroyed by an earthquake at the end of the 1st century AD. The statue of Zeus, which is said to have been on the ancient Greek side of Olympia, is also one of the ancient wonders. The 40-foot-tall sculpture of the god had gold robes, alabaster skin, and sat on a throne in the Temple of Zeus before traveling to Constantinople. Its devastation there was probably caused by another earthquake or even a fire. The Temple of Artemis in Ephesus, a Greek city in Turkey, is another example. Around 550 BC, work began on the marble church, which originally measured 425 feet in length and 225 feet in width, and was supported by more than 160 feet of columns. But in 356 BC, a man who wanted to make a name for himself set fire to the building, and the Ephesians ordered that his name be taken out of history. Even though a new temple was later built on the spot, it would also be destroyed. In the meantime, King Mussel has settled into the muzzle of Liam of Harlech or Nasa, one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world that once stood in what is now Turkey. In order to provide her husband's bereaved widow with some consolation, she ordered the 135-foot-tall marble tomb. The Knights of St. John of Malta then used the muzzle Liam's remains to construct their own castle after earthquakes destroyed much of it in the 13th century. In addition, one of the 7 ancient wonders was the Colossus of Rhodes, a bronze statue of the sun god Helios that stood more than 110 feet tall and ultimately perished. More specifically, it is said that an earthquake caused the Colossus to fall, resulting in the sale of much of its bronze for scrap. However, the work is still in existence because it is believed to have inspired the Statue of Liberty. Last but not least was Alexandria Lighthouse, which once stood on the tiny Egyptian island of Pharos, of debate in the ancient world. Some even made the argument that other great structures should be among their number, and perhaps the Temple of Hercules could have laid a claim to being the 8th inclusion on that fabled list. After all, the building remains a remarkable piece of engineering, built during the Roman occupation of Jordan in around 166 AD. The temple still stands today in one of the oldest parts of Amman. Specifically, it's located on a hill where it overshadows the ancient city. What's more, Amman itself has a long history, with the plateau now known as Mount Al-Khalat. Having been the center of several settlements, there's evidence in fact that people were living in the area as far back as 6,000 years ago, and during biblical times, the nation was home to a people called the Ammonites. King David is said to have battled members of the group, while according to law, his son Solomon took several Ammonite wives. However, when Egypt ruler Ptolemy II Philadelphia's took control of Amman in the 3rd century BC, he changed its name to Philadelphia. And after that, Philadelphia then became one of 10 cities known as the Decapolis. The Decapolis, which were all Greek in language and culture, also included Damascus and Syphilis. Then in 63 BC, the Roman general Pompey conquered Jordan, along with Palestine and Syria. As a result, the greatest city of the Decapolis, Gerasa, later received a visit from Hadrian, the Roman emperor, and the last part of Jordan to be free of Roman control was in the south, called the Nubian Kingdom. The area resisted the empire until 106 AD. In addition, the Romans made their mark on Jordan and Syria, constructing roads, forts, and theaters throughout the two areas. Latin also became the region's official language. Despite the fact that the majority of locals spoke Greek, Roman religion was eventually introduced, which led to some tension in an otherwise peaceful and prosperous period. However, it should be noted that Jordan was still known as Philadelphia when the Romans took control in 63 BC. Fortunately, some of the monuments constructed during the subsequent 400-year occupation have survived to this day. The Hercules Temple, the Roman Odeon, and the Roman Theater are among these. While Marcus Aurelius was in charge of Rome, all three of these structures were built. In addition, despite the fact that the Temple of Hercules was the least well-preserved of the three in 1993, new columns were erected to assist in restoring a portion of its former splendor. The American Center for Oriental Research has also constructed a smaller replica of the temple for display in Amman. Marcus Aurelius was the Roman emperor who ruled from 161 to 100 AD. He was regarded as one of the 5 good emperors and was highly regarded during his time in power. Despite his efforts to serve the public good, Ortelius is also linked to Christian persecution and a number of bloody conflicts in a more upbeat light. Additionally, Ortelius is renowned for his extremely private work Meditations, which he wrote in Greek rather than Latin. These writings took on the philosophical idea of Stoicism and had an effect for generations after he died. In fact, they even made appearances in contemporary popular culture, most notably when Commodus, his father, played the emperor in the movie Gladiator. In addition, the arrival of the Romans in Philadelphia marked a slight turnaround in the city's fortunes, as parts of the area were rebuilt by 1300 AD. However, the city as we know it today was lost, and even though Ottoman Turks later settled the area for centuries, only a village remained. The Mon first became the capital of the British Mandate of Transjordan, and then the independent state of Jordan after the First World War ended. However, the Temple of Hercules was built long before Jordan, as we know it became a state. The building itself is a part of the larger Amman citadel, which also has a Byzantine church that may have used temple materials. Indeed, the pieces of pottery inside the burial chamber date back to around 1650 BCE, long before the arrival of the Ammonites. The area would also later be occupied by civilizations, including the Babylonians, Assyrians, and Persians prior to the advent of the Greeks and the Romans. Yet the Temple of Hercules is perhaps the most splendid of the structures to grace Amman Citadel. The magnificent, albeit seemingly unfinished structure measures up at 85 feet wide and 100 feet long, although its outer sanctum is even bigger at 236 feet by 400 feet. Meanwhile, the 6 columns surrounding the eastward-facing portico each stand at 33 feet tall. It is the lack of columns and other parts of the temple, however, that make the building appear incomplete, and solving the mysteries of the Temple of Hercules has proven incredibly difficult, as excavations of the site have revealed little in the way of evidence for experts to analyze. What archaeologists have found, though, are parts of what appears to have been a marble statue. The tantalizing discovery consists of one giant elbow and three enormous fingers. The experts think that those pieces may have belonged to a sculpture of the demigod Hercules, not least because coins engraved with his likeness were also unearthed nearby. The hero was also a popular character in the mythology of the time, which may lend further credence to the notion that Hercules was indeed the subject of the statue. And as with the temple itself, the statue would have been huge from the pieces they have. In fact, experts estimate that the structure could have been more than 40 feet tall, something that, if true, would have made it one of the biggest marble effigies ever produced. The rest of the statue is long gone, however, so the truth may never come to light. Yes, other than the elbow and hand, the statue has completely vanished, perhaps owing to an earthquake that once felt it. It is plausible that the marble was purchased by locals. As to where it went, indeed, a guide cited in a 2015 Slate article reveals that the remainder of Hercules became a man's countertops. In the meantime, some academics have speculated that there might have been an earlier structure on the spot that Hercules' temple was built on top of. The exposed rock in the inner sanctum of the tribute to Hercules may have once been that temple's sacred heart Milcom, which appears to have been the primary god of the Ammonites and has associations with human sacrifice in the Hebrew Bible. This building may have been the Ammonite Temple of Milcom, which existed in the 9th century BC. Additionally, the Ammonites lived in Amman around 1200 BCE, as we have seen, with the citadel as the center of their civilization. The local Ammonite population frequently faced conflict with the nearby Israelites. Hercules, on the other hand, is one of the most well-known heroes of Roman and Greek mythology. In addition, despite the fact that Alcmene, a typical Greek woman, is believed to have been his mother, legend has it that Zeus, chief of the gods, was his father. The fact that Hercules was said to be so much stronger than the average man may be explained by this divine origin. Hercules' status as a demigod did not make his life easy. However, according to mythology, Hera, his wife, saw him as a reminder of her husband's philandering, and as a result, she attempted to kill him. Hercules reportedly had to protect himself from his stepmother's schemes, even as a young child. Indeed, it is said that she sent serpents to kill him while he was still in the cradle, and he was strangled. But there was more. Yes, according to the legend, Hera would later unleash a madness on Hercules, causing him to murder his own wife and children out of guilt. He then set out on a series of almost impossible tasks in an effort to make amends. The 12 labors of Hercules would later become well known for these. Eurystheus, king of Mycenae, hired the workers, and some of their jobs required them to kill monstrous animals that had been terrorizing the human population. The lion of Nemea was one of these large animals. Hercules only needed to capture the extremely swiftly running Saracenian hind, the ferocious Eremauchion, the rampaging Cretan bull, and the man-eating mares of diamonds, in addition to the hydra, which would regrow its heads every time they were chopped off, and a flock of carnivorous stem-phalian birds. In addition, he was required to remove an impossibly large quantity of manure from the Augean stables within a single day. Despite the fact that the legend states that Hercules continued to travel after completing his 12 tasks, legend says that he was one of the Argonauts who went with Jason to find the Golden Fleece. Later on, the hero is said to have also reportedly saved a Trojan princess from a sea monster. Still, Hercules had to deal with problems like another bout of madness and a time of slavery. Even though Hercules did appear to have good fortune, he would later remarry and have additional children. For instance, the treachery of an adversary tragically caused his wife to poison him without realizing that doing so would be fatal. It is said that Athena, the hero's half-sister, drove him to Olympus after he passed away. He would spend the rest of his life there among the gods. Naturally, there is no assurance that the hand in Amman once belonged to a Hercules statue. In point of fact, the numerous coins found in the region bearing his portrait are the only supporting evidence for the theory. However, despite the fact that it is highly unlikely that we will ever know for certain whether the relics originated from an effigy of the ancient hero, there is still hope that an archaeologist will one day uncover the truth. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.